Okay, well, I currently have my old wireless microphone hooked up to my Akaso EK7000 microphone modded action cam, and I figured I'd just clean up the lab a little bit, and which it sorely needs. Just blurb for a little bit. So it is what it is. I know I don't have the best lighting in here right now. Hopefully that's something that'll improve over time. I know it's quite a bit messy in here at the moment. I've really been up to a lot. I really enjoy creating various types of videos. As you notice, I'm into ham radio, electronics. I was just one of those kids that when I was very young, I couldn't help but take everything apart. In fact, I was so bad at taking everything in the entire house apart, they actually had to lock up the toolboxes and whatnot. So when I was very young, I think that's what kind of got me into starting to do lock picking and whatnot. And I just had this tenacity for self-learning. And there seemed to be, or there used to be, two preliminary philosophies on learning. And that would be either top-down learning, which means you already have something in your hands and you take it apart in order to learn how it works, which is typically what I'm really good at, is breaking things down. And the other type is bottom-up learning, where you're given instructions and you're just told what to do. And that's not a... I know a lot of people have a hard time with that. And, I've always been this outside-the-box thinker. I've always had this curiosity that's always led me down paths of wanting to understand more, despite having a pretty substantial traumatic brain injury and learning disorder, anterior grade amnesia, and a few other problems. People are quite surprised when I start talking about various topics like radio physics as if it was art, because I find it is artful. Math is beautiful. Without maths, we would have never discovered things like fractal patterns. Which, ironically, fractals were, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, originally someone was studying the breeding habits of rabbits and their genealogy and their various traits, eye color, coat color, size, etc. And as they were going through the genealogy, the formula and algorithm for what we now know is fractals became a thing. Oh, who would have known? Rabbits have had more of an influence in my life than I actually thought it ever would. But, it is what it is. You just have to have this sort of mentality where, you can't just look at something as old or obsolete or garbage. I mean, right here, I've got this little Sony boom microphone that I'm probably going to wind up using on my Akaso cam, and this was built probably 15, 20 years ago. I found it in one of my old shit bins. And that's the thing. A lot of people in this world today have an extremely disposable mindset where every 2 years we're replacing our cell phones. Every couple of years we're replacing our laptops. We're constantly replacing our netbooks. And, to be honest, I kind of grew up on a very hardcore cyberpunk sort of way of living. Even though that my family were engineers, and they were all electronics engineers, automotive engineers, and electrical engineers and contractor sort of jobs, those types of gigs. So I was always, luckily when I was growing up, I was blessed enough to be around the type of environment where I had access to resources because, one, I'm in the city, and two, I had a family that was already into all that groovy kind of shit. So they didn't like me taking everything apart, but they most certainly encouraged as much as they certainly could. And without that, I don't think I'd possibly be doing what I do today, which is be happy. I'm absolutely most happy just sitting at my workbench, taking obsolete technology and looking at how can we take this and turn it into something forward-facing. I mean, I have radio BBSs over here that went obsolete back in, sometime in the mid-90s, and they still work. What's the point of getting rid of, these working modems? They're radio modems. Why trash them? And what I find even sadder is that even though that we have a really strong SDR and ham radio community starting to building, especially in the hacker community, I'm not seeing a lot of rebirth or a breath of fresh air into the community itself. I'm seeing a lot of more closed doors and closed gates. Everyone's jumping over to DMR and they're password protecting everything. And I've always felt that the ham radio scene has always sort of firewalled themselves off. And you know what, guys? I am a ham, okay? I was one of those kids that at the age of 12, I was more excited to get my ham radio license sooner than my driver's license. And at my current age, I still don't have my driver's license. And I've had my ham radio license much longer. And I've been wholeheartedly disappointed in the state of New York City, at the ham radio scene. It's just such a dogmatic, pragmatic, walled-off community of people that really don't like to let you in. And I understand why. There's just been an overflood of rice box radios, as I like to call them. Inexpensive, unregulated radios, easily hacked, easily modded, outbanded, that the police here in New York actively have to hunt down because people are using them to, immediately get on NYPD analog citywide, because that's been a problem since as long as I've had a scanner back in '92. Getting on NYPD and all that's not a hard thing to do. And I'm not seeing a lot of people laying down ethical hacking or ethical, SDR freaking. I love to explore the wireless wilderness, and a lot of you douchebags out there that have absolutely no regards for rules, regulations, and just want to hack the planet and fuck shit up or ruin it for people who are legitimately trying to do real experimenting here. So can you do me a favor and stop shitting all over the airwaves for a little while? And if you don't think you're going to get caught, you're sorely mistaken. Seriously. So, no, that's not on that. Man, I've got a lot of work to do. So I've got a couple of projects, hopefully down the pipeline. Not just some ham radio related stuff, but I've also got some thin client stuff, as you've probably noticed, and I've also got some embedded stuff on the way, and I'm thinking about doing a series of videos on the era of internet appliances. I have a bunch of internet appliances in my collection right now that, as much as I'd love to keep, I have to get rid of. But whoever remembers the era of internet appliances? Not many, if anyone. And that was something that was really interesting to me, because back in the mid-2000s, the era of the internet appliances was an extremely unique thing, because not everyone had a laptop, because they were hella expensive. They really were hella expensive. So they were basically trying to, in my philosophy, take yesteryear's technology and upcycle it in such a way where it's not exactly a laptop, it's not exactly a desktop, but it will do the same function. So, in a way, it was like the early generation netbooks for what it's worth, if you want to give it an analogy. Now, of course, the whole world wasn't connected to the internet at the time, and that was a big problem. People were still on dial-up, and not people had, I'm afraid I'm going to pull this cable. I'm going to leave that. Not a lot of people had broadband. Most people were still on dial-up, and they were still getting the hang of what is this email and internet thing. So internet appliances were really geared towards people who didn't want to spend the $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 necessary for a standard laptop or a standard computer. Where did I put all my AV capture stuff? They just wanted to design these for people who just wanted to check their email, go to Yahoo groups or MSN groups, and it all started out with the eye opener. I got the Ergo Audrey and the infamous WebTV2 RM4100. I mean, I got a lot of cool stuff. And I'd really love to showcase all of it, but it's only if you, the viewers, can support me and show that you have an interest. I'd love to document this stuff, but I only have so much time in the day, and I really don't want to make videos that no one really ever has a chance of seeing. So, well, I guess this is enough of a rant and a brain blurb for now. I'm just going to hit the bugger button. And that'll be that.